Hey guys, it's Jonathan from Just Nerds, and I am doing another entry in the Why I series. This series where we can just talk about anything we want, from why I love a certain character to why I hate a certain franchise. But this Why I is going to be a little different, as it is not going to be just why I love this or why I hate this. So this Why I is going to be why I am mixed about Madoka Magica the Movie Rebellion. And I just want to say now that there will be spoilers, since I will be talking about my overall thoughts on the film, such as what I liked and disliked about it, and the best way to do that is to talk about everything, including key plot points. So if you have seen the series and haven't seen the movie yet, you probably shouldn't watch this, even though if you have seen the series, you most likely have seen the movie. So I just want to say that there will be spoilers to anyone who cares. So I guess I can't really give my thoughts on the actual film without first giving my thoughts on the show, Madoka Magica. So I guess you can consider this Why I like a mini review of both the show and the film. So I'll give my thoughts on the show first and then go on to my thoughts on the film. In regards to the show, the animation was great and could be pretty breathtaking at times, and any problems that did exist with the art and the backgrounds were fixed in the actual disc releases, so there really wasn't that much to complain about in regards to the animation. The music was also fantastic. Yuki Kajira, who has composed amazing soundtracks for SAO and Fate Zero, has also made another amazing soundtrack with Madoka Magica, and is personally my favorite soundtrack from her because it is just such an amazing soundtrack. I liked all of the characters except for Sayaka because she could be really annoying throughout the series. But I do have to admit, she did have a nice moment at the end of the series, so that kinda even things out a bit. The story was also very complex and interesting, and it answered a lot of questions relating to the magical girl genre, like how are these girls able to withstand all the physical pain they go through? Where do the witches come from? Why is this being handing out wishes and magical powers? And why do only young girls receive them in the first place? It took these questions and answered them in a very dark and unique way, which made Madoka Magica just an awesome deconstruction of the magical girl genre. And while watching, I did notice a good amount of similarities between Madoka and Eva, so you could definitely see the inspirations that Madoka got from Eva, so I thought that was pretty cool. And the ending, I just thought it was amazing. While being somewhat bittersweet, it left me completely satisfied, and it's probably one of the best endings I've seen for a show. So Madoka Magica as a whole was a very unique experience, and it did what it set out to do in just 13 episodes in a way that most shows with at least double that time just can't do. So looking over it again, and just talking about it right now in this video, I can say that Madoka Magica is probably one of my new favorite animes. So after finishing Madoka Magica, and as you guys can tell, I just thought it was such an amazing series, I had noticed that the 3 movies were on Netflix, so I watched the first 2 movies, which were basically just recap movies with better animation, since Studio Shaft was able to go back and fix all the problems with the art and the backgrounds. It looked even better than the show, so I appreciated that, and it did a pretty good job in recapping the series, so it was cool basically going through the show again. So after going through the first 2 movies, I went on to the third film, Madoka Magica the Movie Rebellion, which actually serves as a sequel to the show. And surprisingly, despite the fact that it came out over a year ago and the controversy surrounding the film, I encountered no spoilers before watching the film, so I knew nothing about it. And after watching it, I was kinda mixed about it, and over time I have come to enjoy the film a lot more, but I am still mixed about the final twist of the film, which I will get into later. Before getting into the main twists of the film, I want to talk about what I did like about the film because, like I said, this is like a mini review in a way. So let's begin my thoughts on the actual film. First, Studio Shaft did another amazing job with the animation of Madoka Magica. The animation is just so much more impressive since the money and the effort is being condensed into a 2-hour movie instead of being spread apart across a 12-episode show. And because of that, it's just a beautiful looking movie. The music was also fantastic, with Yuki Kajira's music being present in the film again. Now, a lot of the music is reused from the show, but there are a few new tracks, and they are some of the best songs in the Madoka soundtrack, like the song Absolute Configuration, which makes great use of the guitar to just make the action even more epic. And leading into that, of course, the action is also fantastic. The action where all the girls work together is pretty amazing. But the best action scene, hands down, was the scene where Homura and Mami fight each other. Just everything works in that scene, from the spectacular animation, to the music with its strong guitar and epic vocals, to the amazing choreography, and just the fact that it was the first time we got to see two high-class, experienced magical girls fighting each other. And I would have to say that this was probably the highlight of the film. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's move on to the actual story and plot of the film, which is where the actual controversy begins. I liked how right away, Rebellion does point out that something is going on. Madoka is around without her godly powers, Saiga is alive, and there are new creatures called nightmares instead of wraiths. So right away, the viewer doesn't know exactly what's going on, and that leads you to try to piece everything together as the girls begin to slowly realize that something strange is happening. And speaking of that, I liked how we were able to see all of the girls work together as a team, since that was something I wish we got in the original show. And being able to see how the girls deal with the new threat of the nightmares with the whole lullaby scene was really cool, since it was also something we've never seen before. So, a complaint that I have heard regarding Rebellion is that the pacing is all over the place. And upon rewatching the film, I feel that there is some weight to the argument. In the beginning, the film progresses pretty well when the girls all come together and fight the nightmares. But when Homura starts to notice that something doesn't feel right, the pacing slows down while Homura tries to figure out what's going on. And this slow pacing lasts up until the end, when the mystery is solved and everything begins to be resolved. But while the pacing could be kinda slow, I felt that the film did still move at a pretty good pace, and the entire time, I was very interested in the mystery behind everything, so I was never bored at any point during the film. So throughout most of the film, I had pretty much no problem with it at all. The production quality was amazing, the characters were still likable, and the mystery was very compelling. But now I'm gonna be discussing the ending, which is where most of the controversy stems from. By the end of the film, Homura finds out that they are a part of a witch's labyrinth, and that the one who created it was herself. It's revealed that the incubators made an isolation field to contain Homura's soul gem. In this field, her tainted soul gem is isolated from the law of cycles, which prevents any magical girl from becoming a witch. But while it prevents her from becoming a witch, she formed a witch's labyrinth inside of her own soul gem that caused her to unknowingly pull in her friends into it, while also giving all of them fake memories, including Madoka, who lost her godly powers as a result. So this sounds kinda confusing, and that's because it kinda is. A fault I will say with Rebellion is that when they give you exposition, they give you a lot at a time. Since everything was a mystery at this point, we weren't exactly able to see how this all happened, so instead it's told to us, and since this is Madoka Magica, the explanation can be confusing when it's given to us all at once. And I can't really speak for everyone else, but I had to listen to the explanation more than once to really understand everything. But I will say that when you look at the entire reveal, it does make sense, but it just seems like a lot to take in at once. And I guess you could ask how the incubators were able to build a field that block the law of cycles, but there is still a lot of mystery behind the incubator, so I don't really have a problem that they were somehow able to come up with a way to do that. So when Homura finds out that they did all of this to get Madoka, she decides that she will become a witch and let her friends destroy her in order to protect Madoka. So Homura does become a witch, but with Sayaka and Bebe's help, everyone is able to save Homura and free themselves from the labyrinth. And as a side note, for the character of Bebe, I thought she was a little unnecessary. She did have a cute design and her powers were unique, but she only gets a few minutes of screen time. So while I did like her, it was kind of a waste that we didn't get to know that much about her, so that's really all I can say about that character. Moving on, when everything is done and Homura is saved, Madoka regains her memories and godly powers and begins to take Homura to heaven, and everything seems alright. And then the main twists happen, which have gotten so many people split on whether they like the film or not. So the final twist of the film is that Homura is able to separate Madoka from her godly powers through her intense feelings of love for Madoka. In doing this, Homura becomes a demon and remakes the universe where everyone is given fake memories and Madoka doesn't have her godly powers anymore. It's mainly based on this twist alone that has divided so many fans on whether they like the film or not, or even if it's a good continuation of the original series. And like I said, I'm pretty mixed about it. So first, I'm going to be talking about the logic behind the twist. The main problem I have in regards to the logic behind everything is, how did Homura know that she could do this in the first place? I mean, there was no indication that this was possible in the series or even in the movie. I mean, how did Homura come to the conclusion that through her intense feelings of love she could separate Madoka from her godly powers and remake the universe? I mean, I don't understand how Homura came to that conclusion in the first place. I don't think it makes sense. And another problem I have is something that Homura actually says when Madoka goes down to save her. So when Madoka is about to take Homura, she says, "I've waited so long for this moment, I finally caught you." So that line implies that this wasn't just a spur of the moment thing and that Homura was planning this. Now, I don't think that Homura planned everything, like the incubators trapping her, Madoka going down to save her, and this whole plot of the movie going down, but I think if she was planning this, it's safe to say that she tainted her soul gem on purpose so that she would end up dying and that Madoka will go down to save her and then she would conduct her plan. But the problem with this is, like I said before, there wasn't any previous indication that this was possible. I mean, maybe if we got some foreshadowing that something like that was possible, or even if there were some subtle hints that Homura had a type of hidden agenda that nobody knew, so then it would make sense when it came to fruition later, but it just didn't do that. And also in terms of Homura's personality, she was acting normal through the entire film. I mean, she was acting kind and selfless to Madoka and her friends, but then when this twist comes, her personality does like a 180 and she becomes a villain. So I don't think it makes sense logically that Homura was able to do it, or even that she had the mindset to do it in the first place, because it just seemed to come out of nowhere. But in terms of the actual character of Homura, I think that's where a lot of people are hating this twist. And like I said, I'm mixed about it because I do see reasons why Homura would do it, but I also see reasons why Homura wouldn't do it and why it just overall conflicts with her character. First, why I think it makes sense. Now, there is a basis as to why Homura came to this conclusion as to separate Madoka from her godly powers and remake the universe. So the motivation for Homura's actions is revealed in the flower scene. Madoka, not knowing that she became a god, revealed that it would hurt deeply if she had to leave everyone, and that she wouldn't want to go anywhere if it meant she would never see them again. This is when Homura says she finally understands. If those are really Madoka's true feelings, then how could she have let her make the choice of becoming a god and being forced to leave everyone? It is at this point that Homura states that she would have stopped Madoka from making that choice no matter what she had to do. So from this scene, I do understand why Homura would resort to such extremes to take away Madoka's powers. Plus, another reason why I could see Homura doing this is because it feels like an extension of her mindset from the original series. After going through timeline after timeline, Homura decided that she would do whatever it took to stop Madoka from becoming a magical girl, even if it meant distancing herself from Madoka. So her mindset became kind of like a tough love scenario where even if she was hated by Madoka, it would be worth it if she could save her. So when Homura takes away Madoka's godly powers and remakes the universe, I kind of saw it as an extension of that, where Homura just went to a new extreme to try and save Madoka from her fate and to just have a world where Madoka can be happy. While those aspects do make sense as to why Homura would do that, I also have reasons as to why I think it contradicts her character and why she just wouldn't do that. I think what bothers me the most is how out of place it feels for Homura's character, because the most defining characteristic of Homura is that she is such a selfless character. I mean, she went through timeline after timeline, constantly saw her friends die over and over, and just constantly kept failing over and over, but kept going through it to save Madoka and her friends from their terrible fates. I mean, that's the definition of selflessness. She never thinks about herself over others. She goes through the most pain in the series because she's always thinking about her friends. She's just the most selfless character I've seen in an anime. And even in the film, she still shows this selflessness. When it came down to it, Homura was willing to let herself go through hell and to let herself be destroyed than to let Madoka be captured by the incubators. She literally put Madoka's life over hers, and it's because of that selflessness that she still shows in the film that it just doesn't make sense to me as to why Homura would betray Madoka and her friends and just do a quick 180 and become this villain by the end of the film. I just feel like doing that goes against what Homura's character stood for. Yes, like I said, her actions are still rooted in trying to save Madoka, but it's also the fact that she becomes so cruel after she makes that decision. I mean, she tells Sayaka that she might even destroy the universe, and she just treats everybody cruelly. It doesn't fit Homura's character from what we saw in the series and during most of the film. And like a lot of you know, the reason why the ending does feel out of place is because the writer, Gen Urobuchi, stated that in the planning stages of Rebellion, his idea was to end the film with Homura being taken away with Madoka, so that there would be a happy ending. But the producer and even the director, Akiyuki Shimbo, insisted that the story should continue, and basically told Urobuchi to make a new ending. And Urobuchi even said, "I really feel that Madoka doesn't just belong to me anymore." So the ending we got was very different than what Urobuchi wanted, and it shows. I still do think that they can end the series off good if they make a fourth film, but I still can't ignore that this ending does feel out of place, even though I don't hate it as much as everybody else. In fact, I don't hate it at all. Like I said, I am mixed about it because there are ways that it does make sense, but there are also reasons why it just doesn't make sense and conflicts with Homura's character. At the end of the day, I do still really enjoy this movie, and watching it a second time, I like it a lot more. It's just I recognize that this movie does still have problems, mainly towards the end of the movie with the twist. So that's why I am mixed about Madoka Magica the Movie 3 Rebellion. I talked a lot about this movie, and I enjoy doing it because I love Madoka Magica. So that's it for this video. Please comment on what you thought of the movie, especially the ending. Did you hate it or were you just, it was okay? So that's it, and take care.